We are having a really hard time choosing when to take our next Disney vacation. In this video, I'm looking for help deciding between the Christmas season and the Festival of the Arts.
Welcome to Always Planning Disney, where planning is half the fun. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Cheryl.
On this channel, we talk through all of the details that go into making our vacations magical. So you've been struggling with this for quite some time.
Far too long. I've mentioned it in a few of our previous videos, and I am here for help from you, Melissa, and from anyone out there who's watching. Please help us make this decision because we are coming up on a deadline. So we have 3 generations going to Disney World again. It'll be my husband and I, our son, who will be most likely 5 at this time, and then my parents. And so far, no one has a strong opinion as to when we should take this trip. We kind of have it narrowed down. So our main choices are the first half of December 2022. So that's when the holidays are underway. There's holiday stuff going on and treats and decorations, but the crowds haven't gotten insane yet. So that first part of the month. And then our other option is January 2023, which would be into Festival of the Arts. So that's what we're deciding between, and we really need to figure this out in the next few months here, I would say, but preferably sooner because I'm going a little crazy with this up in the air. So I have like a few criteria to bring to you for help today. So the first criteria that I thought we could work with is cost, and it's not much help. So the first part of December, December 1st through 14th, and then the entire month of January are in the same tier of the DVC points chart. So DVC points have like these different seasons of the year, right? Both of these are in the second lowest tier for DVC travels. So they cost the same amount per night, and they're both during low cost season. So that's really good. We all want to have a little bit longer trip next time. So we want our cost per night to be low.
So that's sort of a wash. That's a tie right now. Did you look at other prices like flights or anything?
I haven't, because it's so far out yet that I don't know that I could find a whole lot of information. And I think they're both going to be pretty close in terms of ticket pricing, depending on when in January we go, because there is a holiday in there. We would not be going during marathon weekend, so that wouldn't be a consideration with all of those crowds. But yeah, we're really just working off a hotel cost so far, and I think that's about all we're gonna have to go on before making this decision.
All right, so cost is neutral. What else are you working with?
Cost is neutral. Okay, so calendar considerations. We're gonna be looking at kindergarten. Right now my son is in preschool. He'll be in kindergarten at this time. So we do have a school calendar to work with, but I'm not as concerned about pulling him out of school. We also have, my parents' birthdays are both in late January. They're actually one day after another. So it would be kind of fun to be down there for their birthdays, and that's potentially an option. So if we were looking at the December trip, we could tack it onto Thanksgiving break to try and save some of that time that we're pulling him out of school. But that's going to be more expensive. Thanksgiving is a much higher tier for hotels. Tickets are going to be more expensive. I assume the flights, and it's going to be super crowded. So that's not great, but it would be an option. For a January trip, we could tack on to the end of winter break and, extend that a little bit. So we wouldn't be going in that time between Christmas and New Year's, but we could go like right at New Year's into the beginning of January. Or we could tack on to, there's a 3-day weekend for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's also, I looked ahead at the school calendar because it's already posted for this school year. And they have a teacher workshop day on the Monday after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So there we would have less of a price increase, but depending on which one we tacked onto, we may have higher crowds because Martin Luther King can draw in some crowds for a long weekend. People thinking the same thing as me, as, missing out on less school. But the January trip has the bonus of we could be there for both my parents' birthdays. So that's fun. I also think the January and February are just really nice times to take a vacation from winter in Minnesota. So like December, everything is cozy and you're getting ready for the holidays, and like winter is still sort of new. And when you get into January and February here, it's just wicked cold and there are no holidays left. And it's just kind of, it's winter.
The snow has turned gray from all of the cars driving. Our sky here in Michigan is just gray. It's like not even cloud cover. It's just gray. So as a Michigander, I also prefer to go in January or February just to escape our relentlessly long winter. This is also why even on Disney years, but especially on non-Disney years, we tend to go to an indoor water park in like the depths of winter just for a break. So I'm a big fan of January and February, even taking into consideration the whole cold and flu season thing that we talked about. I find that working with school calendars is difficult because if it's a substantial break, it tends to be higher crowds, and we really try to avoid that. And also our school does not release the calendar far enough in advance, I think, for me to plan properly. So I'm just a horrible parent who takes my kids out for an entire week at random. I think that wasn't a big deal when my youngest was in preschool, but now that he is in first grade, it's a bigger deal. He needs to, if he misses a whole week of school, it's a big deal for him. That's a lot for him to catch up on. Where for my daughter, it wasn't that big of a deal, and we would bring work with us, do it in the hotel room. So I might have to start considering school breaks, but so far I just pull my kids out and I say, too bad. For you, I do like the idea of getting your parents' birthdays in there. I like a birthday at Disney.
It is fun. And last trip was my son's birthday at Disney, so it would be fun for them to have a turn. And I appreciate your perspective on pulling the kids out of school, because I do feel like a bad mom for saying like, oh, no school for you, we're going to Disney World. Like, I don't know, something doesn't feel right about that. But I have done some asking around about our school district in particular, because I know this varies so much based on your state and your school district. It sounds like our district is pretty okay with taking family vacations and pulling them out for it. And I have a feeling that my son will be okay with it in terms of catching up on work, just from what I'm seeing out of him in preschool. So, I mean, it's never great to pull kids out of school, but it's something that I know we're going to be less and less comfortable with as he gets older and school is moving at a lot faster clip, and he has extracurricular activities and all of that stuff. So I kind of feel like this is an opportunity for us to do that while he's still young, and we have it.
Yeah. And so next year, I'm looking at a trip to Florida, not to Disney. I'm thinking the Keys. And it was originally going to be for both my birthday and my daughter, whose birthday is just a few days after mine. And I was like, well, we'll go on our actual birthdays, of course, but we're in early January. And so they would have been back from their winter break for like 4 days or something before we would leave. So I'm looking more at their spring break, which is something that I'm fine doing. Going to a place like the Keys, I would never ever go to Disney during spring break. But for this one, I'm going to aim with a school vacation. That way it's a non-issue pulling them. But for Disney, both the cost and just the crowd factor, I really don't like using school breaks because I don't want those crowds. I don't want to be there when everyone else is there.
Yeah, and we'll have to eventually. So let's enjoy the low crowds while we can.
Yep.
Okay, so next consideration is weather. December would likely be better weather than January in terms of just the temperature. We'd probably be able to get more pool time, but that's never a guarantee. So we've gone in early January several times, and we have had very different trips. So we've had trips where people were bringing blankets from their hotel to wrap around themselves because it was so cold in the park. And then we've had really warm weather as well. So I don't think that's enough of a consideration to like bank my decision on.
Even your dad?
Even my dad, yeah, and he's really who I'm thinking about. So my dad really enjoys the pool on his Disney vacations, but even he knows that we could book a trip in December thinking we're getting more pool days, and it could wind up, raining the whole time, or it could turn out to be a cold December or something like that. So I don't think it's enough for him to make a decision on either, but I thought it was worth bringing up, I guess.
Okay. So cost and weather are totally neutral.
Pretty much, yeah, I think so. Or at least not enough of an influence to make a decision for me, which is really what I need at this point. Okay, so this gets into the fun stuff, festival considerations. So this is one of the bigger differences between the two trips. So December, we would have Festival of the Holidays. Really, I'm just going to say Christmas because let's face it, Disney is leaning into Christmas specifically. And Christmas at Disney is throughout the entire property and not just one park. So that's really cool. We could see all of the gingerbread houses at the different hotels, see how they're decked out. And I think that would be a lot of fun. My husband really wants to see Christmas at Disney. He has not experienced that fully. He has experienced a half day of Christmas at Disney, where it was the last day of it and we got in the afternoon. And he said that's just not enough. So he really wants to experience that. And I'd love to do some of those special events like the candlelight processional. I think that would be really fun. But at the same time, going back to the school calendar thing, I think we'll have a lot of opportunities to experience Christmas at Disney in the future when we do need to go during school breaks. So it would be really easy to go over winter break from school. The crowds are going to be insane and it'll be expensive, but I think that may be our future. We want to keep going on Disney vacation. So I think there will be lots of other opportunities to do that down the line. So in January, Festival of the Arts would be going on, and that's a great fit for our group. It was going on last time we went to Disney, and the festival booth menus are, I think, more appealing to more members of our party. My husband's gonna be super happy with any festival booth that he can get to. So he almost doesn't count because he'll eat everything. But I wasn't as excited about the like heavier food for the Festival of the Holidays. I'm much more interested in the offerings at Festival of the Arts. But I think it's important to note that Festival of the Arts is just in the one park. It's an Epcot festival. So we wouldn't have that like property wide excitement going on. We are hoping to stay in an Epcot area resort though, so we could just kind of make it an Epcot centric trip and spend a lot of time at that park really easily and like really enjoy the festival.
I will agree with you that Festival of the Arts, the booth menus are probably the best of all festivals. And I say this even knowing that Food and Wine exists, but I have found that at Festival of the Arts, the booths tend to focus on really classic and tried and true offerings that they heighten and they make so beautiful. So you get a really good blend of it tasting good and looking nice. And I think sometimes Food and Wine, when I look at those menus, it seems a little hit or miss. And I, pay attention to all the reviews. And I find that Festival of the Arts tends to be very reliable in terms of food quality. I have also found that, as you mentioned, there's something for everybody at those. And we have been able to make substantial and filling and fun meals out of several of the booths there because the food is different enough that you can cobble together a dinner, which is one of my favorite things to do at Epcot. So I really like Festival of the Arts. I like the sidewalk chalk on the ground that you sometimes encounter, or the famous paintings that you get to pretend to be a part of. It's just fun little details in there, but it's also it's not so stressful that you feel like you have to do everything at Festival of the Arts. Whereas some things at Disney, I feel like if I don't do it all, perhaps I'm missing out on part of it. So I like Festival of the Arts for all of those reasons. I have no experience at all with Christmas or the holidays at Disney because we've never gone. I've never really even looked into it for us just because of crowd concerns. And I know that if we went, I'd want to go during school break, and that's going to be a really hectic time. So I've never even checked it out. However, I would love to see the decorations throughout all of the parks, all of the resorts. I think it would be something that I need to experience at least once. But like you said, until school schedule becomes a real big issue for us, I'll probably avoid it until then.
Okay, so Festival of the Arts is coming out ahead in terms of festival considerations. I think that's fair. All right, another big consideration is our hotel. So we are planning to rent DVC points from a family member, most likely. We haven't confirmed all of the details, but we are probably going to rent DVC points from a family member. And our family member would be able to book in the Epcot area at 7 months out because she does not have the home resort advantage, which would be 11 months at either of the Epcot area resorts. And we really want to stay Epcot area, preferably the boardwalk, because it's not as expensive to stay at, but it's still close by. And going during this time of year when the weather is kind of a wild card, we don't really want to pay extra for Stormalong Bay and then not get to enjoy being at Stormalong Bay. So I think that's a risk that we likely don't want to take. So I've been struggling to figure out, since right now DVC is really crazy because people basically had a whole bunch of points built up from 2020 during the park closures that they needed to bank, and now they're having to spend those points before they completely expire. And so everything is kind of off of the normal patterns of how DVC availability typically works. So I have to give credit to, I reached out to Jacqueline from Pixie Dust PhD, and I'll link her channel down below. She does a lot of content about DVC, and she helped me kind of think through the DVC side of this whole debate that I'm having. And she linked me to a Disboard thread that had historical data on availability with a bunch of lovely spreadsheets that really helped me figure all of this stuff out. So what I found from those spreadsheets is that early December is a really busy time for DVC travelers. So just like what I'm looking for. There's the holiday festivities and there's low crowds, and the point charts also give you, a cheaper way to stay. Like you can stay for longer, you can spend fewer points per night to stay during early December. So even though early December is a less crowded time overall, it's a very busy time for the DVC crowd because that's when they like to travel. So that means that the 7-month availability at the boardwalk and really a lot of the resorts on property is basically non-existent. People are staying at their home resorts because that's where they can grab it. And there's just not going to be much availability at 7 months out. But then when I looked at the data for January, we have a much higher likelihood of being able to get a room at the boardwalk. There was much better availability historically. Though I did find, and this is true generally of DVC rental options, that we would need to budget for a garden or pool view room because the standard view rooms will probably not be available. Those are the least expensive rooms and they tend to get snapped up really fast. So at 7 months out, when we don't have that home resort advantage, we would be looking at a little bit more expensive room at the boardwalk, but we'd probably be able to get it. So that's looking much more positive in January than it is in December.
Okay, so between the festival choice and DVC point rental, both of those go in favor of January. Now, not to make it more difficult, but are you definitely doing DVC point rental and at Boardwalk for the next trip, or are you willing to entertain other Epcot area resorts or other resorts in general?
Yeah, so we're leaning heavily towards DVC point rental and the boardwalk. I wouldn't say it's like a complete, set in stone decision at this point. But when we looked into like the Swan and Dolphin, it looked like it would be a lot more expensive than we're renting points through a family member, not through one of the big boards. So we do have an advantage there. So I think, yeah, that's really our preference, but we haven't completely ruled out the other options either.
Of course not.
Of course, that's our problem.
So looking at all of it, what's your conclusion as of right now?
So as of right now, we'd have the ability to add on to a school break without having additional costs or, depending on when, big crowds. Just the appeal of a getaway during the deep winter here in Minnesota, and then the increased likelihood of getting that resort that we want. I mean, late January 2023, that's really looking like the winner at this point. So I'm gonna have to talk to everybody else traveling with me, but that's where I personally am leaning.
And I'm going to follow up probably in a week or two to see if that is still the case.
That is a great idea. I do reserve the right to change my mind or be convinced by other members of my party, but it seems like, I think the biggest thing was looking at those spreadsheets and seeing that we would have no chance of getting our preferred resort in December and a pretty good shot at it in January. So that was really the thing that pushed me over the edge, but I'll be curious what they have to say.
And that is the same window that we're looking at. So we could be there at the same time again. Although I am going to wait to see if a school calendar comes out, because I'd really like to be able to extend one of their random days off, because that's not a very popular break. Like you mentioned, you have that one Monday off in January. That's not a holiday for everybody. And it's just one less day that we have to pull the kids out of school. So I'm hoping to get a calendar, but we might be there at the same time again.
That would be great. And we'll actually take a picture together this time, because we completely forgot to when we met up at Fantasmic.
I'm not the best Disney photographer. I am there and enjoying it. And sometimes I get home with like 2 pictures. And of course, it's a child asleep at dinner or, crying his eyes out also at dinner.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know in the comments whether you have any advice for me and which season at Disney World is your favorite. And remember to like and subscribe to plan along with us.